Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. We are not, in fact, playing Subnautica and Wildermyth. Forgot to update the title, the channel, all that stuff. So we're doing real well tonight, folks. It's once again audio issues. Discord and Voicemeeter are really weird, and they don't like playing with each other. So once again, the bane of our existence. This is the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. We are here to bring you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and with me is my wonderful co-host, as always, Courtney Bolin.
Hey, everybody.
All right.
Yes, and I'm feeling much better than last week.
With that stuff. So, okay. So yeah, we're here. I'm likely going to have to update all the titles and stuff like in post for when I do things. So we don't have a lot of news this week. We have some pretty spicy news. And then for our deep dive, we're gonna talk about Monster Hunter Stories 2, the demo, because that demo is available for free to all Nintendo Switch owners. And you get to keep your save data, like your save data transfers to the live game when it comes out.
Nice.
So
yes.
So yeah. Why don't we get this ball rolling since we're starting so late? So we don't go until like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's not a no. All
right, so let's get prepped for quick-fire news. All right, so according to Todd Howard, Elder Scrolls 6 is still in a quote-unquote design phase, whatever that means. Bethesda has reiterated that Starfield is its current focus, which is coming out like slated for 2022. So despite the fact that they mentioned Elder Scrolls 6 at E3 2018.
So 3 years ago now.
3 years ago, it's still in like we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do with it. Like, we don't really know. So like, why even announce it at that point? I don't know.
Why? Like, that's just like, that's just mean. But
I don't know.
I don't know.
So
that being said, Sony and PlayStation Studios has acquired Housemarque. I'm assuming that they made Returnal, Sean, is that correct?
Yes, that's what that means in the notes.
Yes. And a Twitter gaffe implies that they may be purchasing Blue Point Games, who have made a Demon's Soul remake as well. So that will be interesting to see with some Sony acquirings.
Yeah, so what's interesting about that is the Twitter gaffe where it was Sony Japan meant to announce their acquisition of Housemarque, and instead put out a graphic and a tweet talking about how they acquired Blue Point Games. That also had all the Housemarque stuff in the graphic. And then quickly corrected it, but not before everybody acquired screen grabs of it. So they haven't formally announced they're going to purchase Blue Point Games, but everybody's like, well, we all know what you're up to, Sony. We got a new trailer for Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. So this is going to be Marvel's latest film, newest film after Black Widow. So this is coming out in the fall. It shows, in particular, so we get a little more, in background on Shang-Chi. Seems like Doctor Strange, a lot of very visual effects heavy, involving like rings and so sort of magical effects surrounding them. They're worn like bracers, so like you wear 5 rings on one hand and 5 rings on the other, and like you loop them and do all sorts of weird stuff. But it's gonna have Wong from Doctor Strange, who is facing off against Abomination, who is in the MCU, hasn't shown up since The Incredible Hulk,
Wow.
which was the second film to premiere in the MCU and the only Hulk film in the MCU.
Mhm.
So that's interesting and
That's a
weird.
throwback is what that is.
Yes, yes, it is.
But and then our last bit of quickfire news, Ernest Gygax Jr. Is seeking to restore the long defunct TTRPG company TSR Games. Um, but he is alienating practically everyone in the process, including his own family.
Yeah, yeah. This
Yeah.
one, uh, it was difficult to try and figure out how to put this into the because like it is newsworthy because it is caught like wildfire.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
but to
Absolutely. But
also
it's
not have it just be the level of like petty gossip. But basically, it's
yeah.
not how you do PR for like a new company. Um, yeah, just alien a lot of so D&D has experienced like wild growth over the
Oh,
past
yes.
couple of years. Um, in part due to initiatives from Wizards of the Coast, in part due to initiatives from uh, streaming shows like Critical Role, but also the Adventure Zone, Dimension 20. Um,
High
I mean,
rollers.
CR has pulled in quite a number of people,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
uh Dimension 20 is also pulling its weight on like TikTok where they're just posting clips from the shows uh kind
Yes.
of without context. And so people
And
are
I
like, "Yeah,
absolutely love them that
I
way.
don't know what D&D is, but I'm going to have to check out this show because I keep seeing it in my For You page."
Mhm. And
So,
it's really funny, and it's quick fire, and it's yes.
yeah.
Um,
Um but basically a lot of the audience that's being pulled in from this stuff doesn't really mesh well with the audience that supposedly TSR Games wants to cater to, or maybe does. They talk about inclusivity and then they talk about not inclusivity, and it's
it's
confusing
saying, "Come
messaging and
on in,"
nobody can
and
seem
then
to get their priorities straight.
yeah,
Um,
it's they're trying to say, "Come on in, we're inclusive," and then shutting the door in anyone's face who they don't
yeah,
deem word I don't really know how else to,
yeah.
you know
It's also a direct reaction to the sort of lukewarm changes that Wizards is making toward making the game more inclusive. Um,
Yeah, no.
so yeah. But it's also like some of the people they're signing on have made comments that have earned the ire of people on the other side of the spectrum who are very much like would be in line with uh you know saying, "Oh, how dare Wizards cater to people who use pronouns," brah, which isn't that's intentionally hyperbolic because
Yeah.
everybody has pronouns. Um,
Yes.
but that's another joke on TikTok going around right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that like some of the artists that supposedly they're working with have made statements in the past that have earned them the ire of say groups that lean far right. So it's like, who exactly is this company trying to appeal to? Because they don't seem to really fit in anywhere, it seems.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
also, it's I mean, if anyone can tell you, broadening the market is usually the best way to not compete like with other things.
Mhm.
Like if there's
Yeah.
competition, like if there's hot competition between various companies, the
Yeah.
best way to ensure your company's success is to broaden the market and get customers that the other people aren't getting.
Yeah.
That's how you get
Yep.
growth. Not
Yes.
not we're going to target an intentionally small audience. Um
No.
but
No, we're going to
that's
we're
just
going
me
to
coming
open
at
it
this
up
from a
to
Nintendo perspective.
Yeah, we're gonna open it up to even more people, make it more accessible, and then we will have a new crop of people to turn over to our side. And that's not necessarily saying, that's not saying good side, bad side. That's saying you'll just come over to our side of the playground a little bit more. Like, everybody's still playing though. We're gonna bring a new playground toy.
Yeah. Um, I
I
also
I
bring
am
this up.
good at
Apparently,
metaphors.
there's an article on Games Radar, I think, um,
Mhm.
about how indie developers are saying that like it's like they actually don't really get any benefit, it seems, from releasing games on PlayStation, but they feel like they
Mhm.
have to release a game on PlayStation because of the install base.
Hmm.
Whereas it was making comparisons like among the various platforms, and like so Sony might have the biggest install base right now, like between the
Yeah.
PS4, like between the iterations of PlayStation, uh,
Yep.
like various iterations of PlayStation. Um, but that will get them like a tiny fraction of sales and revenue. Whereas
Mhm.
apparently on Nintendo platforms, it's like 2/3 of their sales and revenue.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, like we have to, like we got to release it on Sony's platform, but we don't like to. And that like there's almost no support from Sony proper, like to market and
So
all that stuff.
that just follows the line that Sony doesn't play well with others.
Well, but this is I mean it's specifically like it's just like I mean Sony seems to be doing well enough that they just don't care about indie developers.
Some of the
Um
best games, some of those best breakout games are from indie developers.
like they have a
Untitled
platform
game.
for them, but like outside of that, you're kind of
Yeah.
on your own. Whereas it seems
Yeah.
like and like Microsoft and PC are kind of in the middle somewhere. Steam is also like super small for a lot of these games, which is
Yeah.
weird to me. Um
But
but
but yeah.
yeah, it was like a couple of indie developers. Like Steam was their slimmest margin of sales, uh and I don't know if that's like because people typically pick up stuff through Steam sales.
Possibly.
So like you might sell a bunch, but you also might not make nearly as much revenue as you would from just like selling it on the it's also kind of incomprehensible given that Nintendo's eShop is a giant mess.
Oh,
And I don't know if it's
absolutely.
just like because Nintendo does all these indie showcases that they get people thinking about it.
Mhm.
But anyway, that was a wild tangent to say Blue
Yeah.
Ocean strategy is typical like especially since the Wii era, like has been a topic of talk for just general business strategy. And it's kind of
Yeah.
what Wizards has benefited from shows like Critical Role and Dimension 20 and the Adventure Zone and things like that of drawing people in who had never played D&D before and might not have
Yeah,
ever
because think of
had
this.
any inclination to play D&D before. Um it seems bad business strategy to be like, yeah, we're gonna target this audience that somebody else, namely OSR, is already targeting. Uh,
Mhm.
but we're also gonna publicly make statements to make everybody hate us.
Yeah, you don't make friends on the playground when you go around saying, "Yeah, we're gonna do this," and, you know, keeping with the metaphor of bringing a new toy to the playground. Yeah, we're gonna bring this, and the cool kids can play with it, and everybody else is not cool.
Yeah,
It's like, no, no,
yeah,
that's not how that works there, buddy.
yeah,
Not
and
how
also
that
it's
works.
specifically calling out people that like are fans of Critical Role, and it's like, I mean, D&D, 40% of new players to D&D
Not the brave.
are playing the game because of Critical Role. So, like, regardless of how you feel about the show, if you are actually able to find groups to play with, you might want to
Yeah.
consider that.
Yeah, I will say my reintroduction to D&D was you, Sean, and telling me to watch Critical Role, and now I'm sitting here with dice tattooed on my arm,
Yeah,
Critical Role shirt on, and Critical Role desk lap. Like
yeah,
like it's but I also love our game and everything else, and
yeah,
it's turned into this big, everything, but it's like, come on, people, you don't get to shout at the new kid. You don't get to be the new kid that comes onto the playground and shouts that they have the coolest toy and that everybody else is stinky and not allowed to play with them.
yeah. Well, and it's so here's the thing, like, let's say that let's say that you own an RPG company and let's say that you aren't a fan of these things. Like, I mean, you can not be you're allowed to not be a fan of it, right? It's just maybe don't make statements specifically designed to irritate and upset those people. Like, because all that you've done is guarantee that they will never be your customers.
Well, and I think it's a kind of a good like comparison for here. Like here at 8-bit, we talk about things that interest us and things
Yeah.
that we like. And we don't discourage or disparage anybody who likes other things that we don't like, but there's stuff that we just don't talk about because it doesn't interest us.
Like, we're not gonna be out here on this podcast, like, talking trash about people that listen to other specific podcasts.
No, you do you, boo. It's you find peace and joy in it. Have fun.
Or, people that tend to play with a specific console or are fans of a specific movie series or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. But it's also, uh, Ernie Gygax is renowned for not being a good businessman. So, this will be an interesting, business trajectory to watch, in terms of how spectacularly it might fail.
Mhm. It's gonna go up like a wildfire in one way or another.
Yeah. So, anyway, why don't we switch
Continue on
topics so that we
tangent.
can get off that dumpster fire. Uh,
Yes,
let's talk about
that.
Monster Hunter Stories 2.
Yeah, tell me about it.
All right, so a couple things. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that there's a free demo, and they give you quite a bit of content for a free demo.
I was
Um,
gonna say, yeah, how much time have you been able to log in with that demo?
so I mean, all in all, like if you're rushing through it, it's maybe like 2 hours.
Okay.
However, it's not like time gated so much as when you get to the point, like it asks you to save, and that's when it says like, okay, the demo's finished. Thank you for playing. So in theory, you could wander around and do all sorts of stuff before you get to that point and really extend out that
Okay.
time. I think I put in maybe like 5 or 6 hours. Um,
Nice.
so there are a few things. One of the things that I hope is the frame rate is a little inconsistent. So when you're in menus
Okay.
and stuff, it runs like solid 60 frames a second, and the menus look really slick. Um, and then when you get into like the field, in battles and stuff, it kind of drops down to like 30 frames a second. Um,
Okay.
so I don't know if that's intended. Um, and that was docked, handheld. I did play a little bit handheld, and it seemed about the same. Um,
Okay.
so that's it. Like it didn't have dips in frame rate. It was just pretty consistently like at 30 frames versus 60 frames in menus and stuff. Um,
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the times when demos go out, it's to have those tiny, tiny, tiny little tweaks also, right? And
well,
sometimes
here's
the
the game
servers
comes out in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I don't
Okay.
know how much more time there is for optimization.
Mhm.
Maybe like they could see, oh, well, okay, so we've got these stuff. Maybe there'll be like a day one patch or something, which I'm not usually a fan of day one patches, like, but if they put out the demo this demo was meant to garner interest. It wasn't meant for play testing.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
So
that's what I was wondering. I was like, is this demo for because sometimes demos are for a little bit of play testing, right?
sometimes, yeah, but I mean that might be if it's much further ahead,
Much
like
further
further
out,
out from the
yeah.
release date, then you can
Mhm.
get feedback from it and everything. They're not really going to ask for feedback on this. So it's not
Mhm.
meant to be a play test demo.
Okay.
It's meant to be a marketing demo, and that's
Okay.
fine. It's you get to keep you keep your save data. It transfers into the game. And there's a whole bunch of other games that like Monster Hunter Rise and Smash Brothers now have tie-ins where if you have stories to save data, you get either event quests or spirit board stuff in those respective games. So that's neat.
Mhm.
Um,
Nice.
so aside from that, I mean, it's visually a very pretty game. It does sort of like it's kind of like what Pokemon could have been.
Okay.
Uh, in terms of the art style, like it's reminiscent of that, but also reminiscent of um sort of like Breath of the Wild and Wind Waker and like a lot of the newer Zeldas,
Okay.
except for Twilight Princess. Uh, but it's very bright, it's very colorful, but sort of unlike Pokemon, it feels like there's life and a vibrancy in the game. Uh, because Pokemon Sword and Shield, like they felt a little soulless. Like
Mhm.
looking back on the game now and like having put as much time and everything, like the models and everything, they lacked something. Um,
Mhm.
and this game has it. Uh,
Nice.
the setting is a tropical island. So that right there, that scores bonus points for me because it has that sort of island aesthetic. Um,
Mhm.
and right off the bat, they introduce the concept of like this village lives side by side with monsters. And like sometimes you have to go out and you have to like go fight monsters, but
Mhm.
you are also working along like if you can tame them and work alongside them and bond with them, that's
Yeah.
preferable to uh what hunters do and just like
Mhm.
going out and just killing everything. Um
Yeah.
and I guess at the start of the game is you're trying to play nice with this group of hunters and like work together and like bridge the gap because apparently hunters aren't keen on your lifestyle and there's a little bit of it. So they mention scout flies and the hunters have scout flies, so this seems to tie into like
Mhm.
Monster Hunter World a little bit, which
Okay.
technically speaking you were a bunch of like settlers that established a colony, so there could be a little bit of like colonialism type stuff there where there might be a little bit of where I think some of the resentment from the
Mhm.
villagers is kind of rooted in that a little bit since hunters
Mhm.
don't respect the way of life. They come in here, they make their own demands and everything. Um,
Mhm.
and so there's some tension there, and it sets up the main story of the game. Um, so I won't kind of spoil that, even though it's a demo, um, and
Mhm.
that it's been in trailers and everything. But I want people to experience that on their own. But I will say you are able to tame at least 5 different kinds of monsters in the demo.
Cool.
Some of which you just get through the story, and other ones you can get by going into monster dens. So these are
Yeah.
like random little micro dungeons that pop up on the map. Uh, you go in there, and it's largely just treasure. There might be some little monster battles, but not a lot. And it's your goal is to find the monster nest and like grab an egg and leave.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's a monster sleeping in the nest, and your goal is to not wake it up, because if it wakes up, you'll have to fight it.
Yeah,
Sometimes there isn't.
sneaky mission.
Um, but ultimately, like, I don't know what causes the monster to wake up. It might be like if you run into it or something, because I only woke it up once and I did a lot. I hatched a lot of monster eggs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, the battle system, I I kind of really dig. So, you have attacks, you have skills, and then you have like monsty skills. You can also you can swap out your weapons, which will affect which skills you have access to. You can also swap out your monster, uh, like mid combat.
Cool.
Um, so regular attacks, um, and skills, have one of three types, um, which is power, speed, or technical. And they represent this like with red, blue, green. So red is power, blue is speed, green is technical.
Mhm.
So like if you can't remember which like beats what in the rock paper scissors thing, you still have a color association if you play Pokemon. So red beats green, green beats blue, blue beats red. Um
Hey, I like that. I like
yeah,
simple.
yeah. Um so but it's also like it also has word and icon signifiers for people that are colorblind, right? So you're not entirely reliant on color. Um
Mhm.
In addition to that, like there's also weapon damage types. So
Mhm.
not all of the weapons from Monster Hunter make it into stories, but most of them do, enough that like it gets broken
Nice.
down into various types. So there's slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing, basically.
Mhm.
So slashing are sword and shield and great sword. Bludgeoning
Okay.
is the hammer and hunting horn, and then piercing is the bow and the gun lance. Um, which they also do as like projectile, piercing slash projectile. Um,
Okay.
and certain monsters and certain monster body parts are weak to different kinds of weapon damage.
Yeah.
Um, so you're often needing to swap out your weapons based on like what you're attacking, and then you are trying to counter the enemy's attacks by picking an attack type that will beat their attack type.
Okay.
So hopefully that makes
Mhm.
sense. And then the skills are often just, a more powerful attack with different riders on it. And you have to spend part of like your friendship gauge with your monster in order to use skills. Um, but if you build up the friendship gauge up to full, you can then mount up onto your monster and use like combo attacks. And then use like an ultimate attack, sort of a thing. So sort of
Nice.
like Z moves in Pokemon, for those that remember
Mhm.
that, one generation mechanic. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there's also like different types of elements that like monsters and your weapons can have that like affect how much damage you deal, but aren't really represented very well in the menus. Um, and like there's also not really an easy way to tell what elements a monster might be weak to.
Mhm.
Um, so hopefully like they explain that further. Um, One of the other things that I found a little off was um just picking up items in the field. It's not as seamless as it is in Rise. Um,
Okay.
and just the sound effect that they used didn't quite line up with what I think would be a good sound effect for picking up an item. So that's like a minor quibble on my part. That's just a
Mhm.
little like UX um type thing. Um, I mean the music's great. Monster Hunter music's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm like, I always love watching your streams of you playing Monster Hunter, like, when I can watch, because, like, as much as I love, like, just watching you kill monsters, like, and also the Palicos are love. Um, But, yeah, the soundtrack that goes along with it is just always awesome. It's, like, relaxing and yet also has that little bit of tension just when it needs it,
Yeah.
so, like,
Um,
great
you
composition.
you do get a Palico companion. He does not fight in combat, and he does not wear little Palico outfits.
That makes me sad.
Uh, what he does is he's sort of like the weird little comical relief character.
Oh,
But what he'll do is when you go to collect monster eggs, he can sniff the egg and tell if it's a good egg or a bad egg. And your goal is
wait,
you want
if it's a bad
rare.
egg, does it go down the furnace?
No, you just what you do is like when you pick up an egg, he'll rate it and he'll tell you how smelly it is and how heavy it is. And you want stinky, heavy eggs. Uh, and um, he might say like, "Oh, this one's really stinky. Like this will be great." And this egg's pretty light. And he'll say like, "Are you sure you want this one?" And then if you don't want it, you just like collect another egg because you can only keep one egg from a particular nest.
Oh, okay.
So that's primarily his point, and then just like comical dialogue and cutscenes and everything. Um,
I'm a little sad that you can't dress up your Palico, like
yeah, I mean, supposedly there may be some other Palico that shows up, because there's layered armor for Monster Hunter Rise, which is like cosmetic armor
yeah,
for Palicos to make them look like a Palico from Monster Hunter Stories that is not this
okay.
character.
Hmm. So, yeah, maybe you get something later game that you don't get in the demo,
Possibly, yeah.
and if that's the case, then and you have to wait a little bit until you get to dress up your adorable little Palico. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you have to wait, you have to wait.
Yep.
It's like how I have to wait to get a dog before I can start actually buying the adorable dog clothes. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm gonna be a great dog mom.
trying to think of what else. So yeah, I mean they have, quests and subquests and stuff. You go to the quest
Mhm.
board, but you can also go to individuals.
Are the
A lot
quests
of them
ti
are
you said that they weren't timed, so, these quests aren't timed like the other ones that have been?
um well, I meant that the demo wasn't. So some demos like are only available for like an hour. Like once you start playing, like you can only play for an
Oh.
hour or
Oh, okay.
yeah. The quests and
Okay.
stuff like the quests, some of them. So when you go out into the field, you can choose if it's daytime or nighttime. Some quests you can only complete the objectives like at nighttime or during the day, depending on what monsters show up or what materials show up. Most of them are kind of fetch quests or like, go out, collect these things and bring them back to me. And some of them might be like, go out and
Mhm.
kill X number of these monsters and come back and see me. Um, most of the ones in the demo fall under that category. Some of them are like, combine 10 items, which is like Monster Hunter's crafting mechanic. Um,
Okay.
Uh, but I mean, they're all very sort of run of the mill RPG fare. But oftentimes you'll be able to complete them while you're doing story content. So there is that.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Sounds very fun.
I'm looking forward to it. It was nice for me to be able to get a sense of what the game is going to be like because there's only so much that you can pick up from like watching trailers and gameplay videos and things like that. Um,
Mhm.
but it was nice to see it. It was nice to interact with some of these characters. Nice to get a feel for the town. Um, you can name your monsties, so that's pretty cool. Um, and one of the things that like they kind of touch upon in the demo, but you don't really get into it, is the essentially the genetic bingo system. So, your monsters get like traits and abilities that qualify as like quote unquote genetics, and it's in like a 3 by 3 grid, and what spots they have available is determined by like on an individual basis. So like the
Okay.
rarer the monster and the better, quote unquote, the better the quality of the monster, the more spaces you might have
Mhm.
open and the better types of spaces you might have open. And you
Okay.
get a bingo if it's certain, if the different spaces for abilities match certain criteria. So like if they're all like if you have 3 fire abilities in a row, you would get a bingo. Or if it's like 3 attack abilities, you would get a bingo kind of a thing.
Okay,
Genetic
you
bingo.
keep saying they get a bingo, and I keep thinking of,
They literally
what
use
is
the
it?
term bingo in the game.
No, but you keep saying it, and I'm like, "It's a bingo from Inglorious Bastard." I'm like, "No, that's so not what is meant."
Um, so yeah. This is also we saw in sort of the I can't remember if it was the E3 trailer or a previous Monster Hunter spotlight direct or something. Um, where you are able at a certain point to combine monsters, and what they
Mhm.
do is like one of the monsters determines like the new monster, and the other one can contribute skills that it will get. So this is how you can get like, Lagombi, which is like a snow rabbit and essentially an ice type monster that knows fireball, uh, to be able to like use different attacks against, different monsters, sort of a thing, and do unexpected types of attacks against certain monsters.
Hmm,
So yeah.
nice.
Um, I will say this is probably a game like so the game is intended like you are not it's not necessary to have played the first Monster Hunter Stories game. And I don't know if Capcom's intention is also like you don't need to have played Monster Hunter before. I will say, uh, having played Monster Hunter before, and especially multiple Monster Hunter games, is a big help to kind of knowing what monsters you come up against and what you're in store for,
Mhm.
and like what sort of abilities you can expect. Um, because of that experience.
Okay.
So, for example, and like the game will give you little prompts or whatever. Like when you go up against like a Puke Puke, it'll be like, oh, we're gonna go up against a Puke Puke. We should probably get some antidotes at the market. And
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I mean, because it uses poison attacks or whatever. Um,
yeah.
but you might come up against monsters where like you don't necessarily get that lead up. And so it gives you an
Oh.
idea of like having that experience knows like, okay, this is what I need to watch out for. Um,
Yep, yep.
or this type of attack might be more effective against like this type of weapon might be more effective against it than others.
Hmm.
Um, Other times doesn't exactly work out that way. There are these bugs, flying. They're like big wasps, called
Mhm.
Banahabra. I don't know how else to pronounce it because it's literally Bnahhabra. Uh,
Okay.
And because they're flying, you would expect, oh, projectile weapons are probably great against them. They're not.
Yep.
You want blunt
What?
weapons to squish them. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, so hammer is super effective. Bows not very effective. So, but I can
Mhm.
also see that argument too because they're very small, they're difficult to hit. Um, and bows like you need to they're precision based weapons, so you need to aim, and it often can be very difficult to actually hit them with a precise strike.
Oh, yep.
So, yeah. So I will say, all in all, the goal is to, deliver an experience that might be fun for people that aren't super into the mainline Monster Hunter series. Um, However, I think your enjoyment of the game will be a lot more involved and probably a lot better if you have that experience.
Good to
But
know.
I don't necessarily
Good
know if
to
it's
know.
necessary. Um, the
Yeah.
great part is this demo is free, so you
Yes.
can certainly try it out. Um,
Yes.
it does kind of have the problem of the silent protagonist. So if that's something that
Okay.
is a turn off, be forewarned about that. Um, and also
Mhm.
be forewarned of like the face that you pick for your character. Like it does character customization type stuff, but um like especially the smile that you pick or like the mouth shape that you pick because like that'll show up a lot in cutscenes and sometimes
Yep.
it doesn't quite match the tone of the scene and it just looks goofy. I say this as I had a character with a smirk, just like a with
Mhm.
like one side of the mouth,
The half
upturned.
smile.
Uh and seeing a smirk show up like when your character's meant to be like super serious or sad or something is just like, okay, that looks a bit weird.
That's a little
So
off-putting,
a
but
little
yeah.
off-putting, but it's fine. And the NPCs so far are great. I can't wait to
Nice.
see more NPCs. I like them all
Mhm.
so far that show up in the demo.
Nice.
So
There we go.
yeah.
Nice.
And it is
Awesome.
aside from the main character, voice acted, and the voice acting is pretty decent.
Nice. So
Yeah,
when does this, so the demo is out now, and it launches in a couple of weeks, you said? So mid-July-ish,
yeah. It's
I'm assuming?
sorry, July 9th.
Oh,
So
so next Friday.
yeah,
Next Friday.
in a week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Week and a half. So that's why when I say
Nice.
like there's not a whole lot of time to optimize things further, like unless that's literally what the team's doing is they're working on
I
optimization.
wasn't
If I will say, if they can get that game, I don't expect them to. And even then, I think, if the game was locked to 30 frames a second for everything, that's fine. I'm not a huge stickler for
yeah.
everything has to be 60 frames a second for me. If it's not 60 frames a second, this game's literally unplayable. Um, Especially like if everybody's playing at 30 frames. Like it's a single player game. So what are you doing? Um,
Yeah.
but if they can somehow optimize it and get it 60 frames a second everywhere and not just in the menus, this is going to be
Yeah.
a gorgeous game. Even
Nice.
more than it already is.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so and yeah, right now,
Well, we will have to wait and see.
Raisewing Ratha
Right now.
is available in Super Smash Brothers Ultimate if you have save data with the
Nice.
demo. So it's like a very powerful
Cool.
neutral spirit.
Nice.
Um, Also, here's a weird thing. Uh, so Nintendo's kind of been talking about it as if it was an exclusive. Um, it's also coming to Steam.
Okay. Good to
Literally same
know.
day.
Very good to know.
Like same day,
Okay.
it's releasing to Steam. So,
Okay.
my guess is it will probably run 60 frames a second on PC. Um,
Yeah.
so it then just becomes if you want it portable or not.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but yeah, it's like
To be fair,
none
I
of the
like both, but it's
communication has made
affordable.
it sound like it's going to be available on PC. Like the only time you often hear about the fact that it's going to be on PC is usually when people are complaining about the frame rate or the graphics, which isn't
Mhm.
often
Yeah.
because like otherwise the assumption is like, oh well, I'll just pick it up on Switch.
Yep.
So
There we go.
yeah. Also, to be clear,
Cool.
I'm pretty sure the demo is only available for the Nintendo Switch.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a demo available for Steam.
Okay. There we go.
So, all
All
right.
right.
That is going to wrap up our deep dive on Monster Hunter Stories 2. Let's get into our quest log. Quest log is where we talk about what sort of personal quests, geeky objectives, and things on our task list that we have to do from the past week that we achieved, and what we want to add to our log for the upcoming week. So, Courtney,
Mhm.
I added one for you for last week, which was simply get well soon. Did you achieve
I
that?
was a I did. I was able to see that. Yeah, I had some sort of stomach bug was not happy with me last week. So
Yeah.
I have since recovered. I am doing much better. Um, I felt really bad that I had to miss last week. So I am doing much better. Um,
Well, that's good to
and
hear.
I don't think I and I don't think I got to tell anybody, but I know I told you in person, Sean, but I have an ostrich. And now I not only have an ostrich on my Stardew farm hatching, no, he's full grown. I have
I
a
thought you were
second
going to
egg in
say,
the
not only do I
incubator.
have one on my Stardew farm, but I have one in real life. And
Oh yeah, he's in the garage.
I was going to question, where are you keeping a 6-foot tall bird in
In
downtown?
the garage?
It wouldn't fit. It wouldn't fit.
Yes, he would. Yes, he
No.
would.
They need
Yes.
so much
The
room.
garage,
It's like a
absolutely.
horse, Courtney.
Yup.
Yeah. You don't keep a horse in the garage.
I
It
mean,
doesn't
what?
happen. So,
No,
uh,
no, but yeah, I
so
did get
great.
my ostriches. So my ostriches are starting. He has matured. Stretch is tall enough and big enough, and is now. I have a second ostrich egg in the incubator. I was possibly doing almost cartwheels when I finally got it. Um, a note for anybody on Stardew that is trying to get to that point: keep updating your island. Keep spending those golden coconuts or golden walnuts, because by upgrading things, I was actually able to progress the storyline a little bit more. So don't try and hold out and wait for it, because it's waiting for you. So that's
Okay.
my advice on that one too.
Nice.
um,
Um,
yeah, I have.
what's what's your goal for next week?
So I am so close. Like I have less than 10 ingredients left yet until I can cook everything and become the gourmet and have that and get that achievement. So that is going to be my goal, is to make sure, see how much I can get, see if I can get everything done. See if I can get everything done. All of the crops are done. I just have a couple more fish that I have to get. And a couple more, like I had to get a cow because I needed milk. Um, and
You
stuff like
should just
that.
have a
So,
cow
but
anyway. You have a farm. Why? How do you have a farm and not have a cow?
I know
That
many
that's
farms
just
in the
that's just
area that don't have cows.
unstardewian, Courtney, because it's not in
Unstardewian.
America.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can't say it's
Yeah.
un-American because they don't live in the United States. Um,
No, they don't.
so all right. So
But yes,
finish Stardew
that is my
cooking
goal.
for the gourmet achievement.
Yes.
Nice. So we'll
Yep.
check back in on that next week. I
Mm.
did work on coloring a comic. And I worked on the Winter Bite page for Tales of Jamora. I have not made another TikTok video. Um, just this past week was filled with all sorts of stuff that precluded being able to uh make a video. So hopefully things will start quieting down. I am technically on vacation this week. Um, so the goal is, so I completed 2 out of 3. Goal for next week
Mhm.
is to color another comic, which that's kind of
Yep.
lowballing. My goal is to like I've done 2 this week so far. The goal is to do 10, which I could probably very easily do. Uh, make a TikTok video.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Bless you. And work on the
Thanks.
Hinterlands page for Tales of Jamora. Or just, I guess, Jamora.
I
So Tales of Jamora is going to formally be the podcast and stream show. The campaign setting itself will just be called Jamora.
Mhm. Sounds good.
With some, title appended to it, because that's how you do campaign
Mhm.
settings these days, I guess. Um so yeah, to work on the Hinterlands page, which that'll be a shorter one, since it's not a big primary uh like region. Um so it'll probably end up being like Bronner, um and the Tempest, where it's got like a couple paragraphs talking about it. So,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Sounds
and that
good. Sounds
is
good.
what
I'm excited to be
I've
able to
got.
do that.
So yeah, all right. Um, that is gonna wrap up this episode. Thank you all for joining us. If you want to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out the following: is 8-bitadventures.com for the 8-Bit Adventures comic, for VODs of these streams, um, as well as, generic artwork that I do.
Nice.
Also, be sure to check out Instagram at 8-Bit Adventures, to get things like Fan Art Friday, where I do fan art on Fridays.
Yeah.
As well as the comics go up there too. So, um, if you want to help support that content, you can become a patron at patreon.com/8bitadventures. Big shout out, thank you to all of our current patrons. Thank you so much for your continued support. Um, you can also become a subscriber right here on Twitch. I am hoping to get enough subscribers so that we can unlock some more emote slots, because that is directly
Woohoo.
tied to directly tied to your subscriber count. Um, so right now there is one emote. The other ones are all tied to like other various things. So it would be nice to get more emotes to be able to let people use them all over Twitch, or in Messenger, because that's
So
a
I can
thing that you can do. So
wait,
I
what?
think we're like 11 short of the next tier. So we've got quite a
Oh,
ways to go. But again, thank you to all of the current subscribers. So, and as a
you.
reminder, if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch subscription each month. Please consider using your Twitch Prime subscription on this channel. And a reminder to people that are Twitch Prime subscribers, don't forget you got to re-up that every 30 days. So,
And it does give you a reminder. It tells you when you are due for that. So you can
yes,
always just go
it
to
now
the page
shows
that you've
that,
subbed at,
like, how many days you have
and it
left.
will say, yeah, it will say, I can't remember if it'll say exactly how many days you have left or which day you can renew on, but it has updated a little bit, so it's a little bit easier to keep track, so long as you remember which channel that you have put your sub to.
Yeah. Finally, our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. So go over there, show him some support. And that's it. We're done. So, as always, have fun, everyone. Happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.
Bye, everybody.